1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
The Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All of it.
One of resistance.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Star Wars Reactions. We're back with our 90th episode. Yeah! The crowd goes wild. 90 episodes in. That's right. We're here. We're going to have so much fun tonight. It's going to be a great episode. So I'm glad you're here with us. Let's not hold back. Let's get the introductions out of the way so we can get this going. My name is Stewie Griffin. No, just kidding. My name is Aaron Harris, and joining me is the Chewie to my Han, the David Motters. David, brother, how you doing?
I am doing really good, man. Ready to react. I know we've waited a few weeks here to get this last one out in terms of covering Kenobi, but we've got a lot to cover, and we'll do a great job. I'm ready to react, and just thankful to be on with you again, brother.
Absolutely. It has been a short bit since we've been able to put anything out. My whole family came down with COVID, and it was a long road to recovery. But we're all better and feeling healthy and doing well. And appreciate all the thoughts and prayers out there, because I had a few people reach out to me, and I appreciate that. It's nice to have the family. So. And y'all are family, and we appreciate it. So, but it's good to be back behind the mic, and it's good to be able to finally talk about part 6 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. But before we do, just a couple news items I want to clear all the way first, so we can have a great conversation about the Kenobi finale. First up on the list, of course, we are recording this July 7th of 2020, or 2022. Oh my gosh.
Carabas.
I just time traveled. Take me away. I don't mind going back in time. 2022. That's right. January 7th, 2022. Carabast. So, and today, and I don't know if I talked with you before the show, David, so I know you haven't seen did you see the full trailer?
I have.
Or just see that it was released?
No, I see it right here. The trailer, I'm looking at it right now. I have it on mute. I see some of the stuff they're showing. Yeah, it looks so cool.
Yeah, they released a trailer for an upcoming documentary on Disney Plus called Light and Magic. It is a 6-part documentary about the creation and basically the history of ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, the production, the special effects studio created by George Lucas for Star Wars, and which basically just took on a life of its own. This looks absolutely fantastic, because you everybody knows ILM and everybody knows they do special effects, but you don't realize how much stuff they have their hand in across the board. And just watching this trailer, it just kind of blows you away as you're seeing just all across the board everything they're talking about, and the directors that they have. In the trailer, you see Steven Spielberg, James Cameron, you see, of course, George Lucas, Kathleen Kennedy, members of the original ILM team. I mean, this is just a huge, basically it appears to be just a huge labor of love and about ILM. And I just cannot wait to watch this.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I just watching it here silent, and I see it's 2 minute 12 second trailer. But yeah, I think about when George Lucas said that he talked to Steven Spielberg after Spielberg made Jaws and had John Williams do the music, and he said you need to have him for Star Wars, and then George talked about it, and even J.J. Abrams says to have John Williams do the music, he's like, you're cheating. It's just like it enhances your movie so much, and that's what I think about with ILM when you're not just Star Wars, Lucasfilm making Star Wars, but when you have ILM doing your special effects, it's like cheating. You're so ahead of the game. So yeah, can't wait to see this starting July. What is it? 27th.
July 27th is the premiere. And I assume in traditional Disney fashion, every week they'll release a new episode. It really wasn't specified, but I assume that's how it'll be. So I assume they won't drop all 6 parts at once. They'll drag it out, and which actually that would take us awfully close to the premiere of Andor.
Yeah,
there at the end of August.
Yep.
So we shall see. It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Definitely.
So also in the news today, I woke up to this awesome text message from a friend of mine telling me that he recently guest starred in the most recent episode of Coffee with Kenobi with our friend Dan Z. And that was none other than our co-host, my friend, the David Waters. David, tell us about your guest spot on Coffee with Kenobi.
Yeah, it's great. Whenever Dan has asked you or me to come on Coffee with Kenobi, it's always a lot of fun. Of course, as you and I have said, we were part of the Coffee with Kenobi network for quite a period of time. And so we just have a lot of fun with Dan, you and I. We've, done stuff at Disney with him and done podcasts. We've had him on for a chat with session, we've had him on with us. And so, he'll periodically ask different people to come on and do it. So he'd ask me, and I always have fun. I love talking with Dan, and it was so cool to have Dr. Greg Cass on as well. He's just a really neat guy, a great Star Wars fan, and I follow him on Instagram and Twitter and all that, and he just looked like he had an incredible blast out at Star Wars Celebration and all that. So it was really fun to talk. The 6th episode, in essence. Well, the 6th episode, and Dan really asked Greg and I to talk about how this Kenobi series impact the overall Star Wars lore. So that was a very interesting process to do that. Even at one point, Dan was talking about Vader and whether he was a sociopath, psychopath, and I talked a bit about antisocial personality disorder, but also came back around and said that, yeah, Vader would be that. He would be along the lines of Ted Bundy and stuff like that. So definitely a sociopath, psychopath at the point where, I mentioned it when we recorded that, when Vader's coming down the street in part 3 of Kenobi, he's just coming down and just willy-nilly killing people. That's not any social personality. That's a psychopath. And so we talked about that, and it was fun to talk about the psychology of Vader there. We did a little bit more of that, and it was just a fun time. But that show dropped this morning. As you and I record this on the 7th, it was released this morning. It's CWK show number 544. Okay.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I encourage people to take a listen. And of course, Dan was encouraging people to subscribe to us and listen to us. And even Greg Cass, he said, he's really enjoyed listening to our deep dives into these episodes. So that was really nice of him.
Oh, perfect. Well, definitely happy to hear that. I know it's on my playlist. You texted me this morning and I said I was going to listen to it. I got it downloaded to listen to, but I have been so busy today. I haven't had the opportunity to queue it up. I'm actually going to do that when we're done recording and I'm getting stuff uploaded and editing. I'll be listening to it then.
Very
so
cool.
Definitely check that out. Check out that episode of Coffee with Kenobi. And I guarantee you right now, because I've said Coffee with Kenobi so many times now, when I do my email address at the end, I'm going to screw it up and say Coffee with Kenobi.
That's right.
Because this is creating a habit, reawakening a habit that I used to have when we were a part of the Coffee with Kenobi family. So we'll see if that Carabas moments happens, but I can almost guarantee you it will, and I'll realize it after it's done. So So I might as well go ahead and put on my Carabast hat now that I ordered and wear it. And because I already feel that I can feel it coming. So, all right. Well, let's close out the news there. That's enough news. We want to go in and we spend our time talking about part 6 of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which premiered on June 22nd of 2022, written by Joby Harold, Andrew Stanton, and Hossein Amini, and directed, of course, by Deborah freaking Chow, who is just freaking awesome every time. And I want to go ahead and make a disclaimer right now. None of my family's home, so I'm recording this, and my dogs are in the room. So if you hear a dog whining, that is Ahsoka Tano, who is not thrilled about being in the Rebels reactions.
Carabast.
Well, with all the Rebel stuff I have lying around, it might as well be the Rebels reaction studio. It looks pretty much the same. The Star Wars reaction studio with me. She's not thrilled about that because she's been in here literally all day because this is also where I work from home. So, oh, Carabast. So let's get this going. Fabulous episode. Of course, just a brief synopsis. This is the end all be all episode, season finale episode. We have Kenobi trying to lead Vader astray from the refugees that are trying to escape. Runs off in a shuttle, fights Vader on a planet, while Reva goes to Tatooine to find the child. After I would say defeating Vader, but pretty much fighting to a draw with Vader. He had the upper hand at the end of the fight. We'll get into that later. He leaves, goes to Tatooine, ends up finding Luke in the hands of Reva, who basically had a mental breakdown, did not kill Vader, was redeemed. We got another lightsaber buried in the desert. There ended the lesson. Like I said, brief synopsis. That's it.
Yeah.
So let's get into our initial reactions of part 6. David, kick us off, my brother.
Yeah. What words do you describe this episode or season finale? I hope it's not series finale. The first word that came to my mind was moving. Then, for me, the next word was emotional. Then the word exciting. Then nerve-wracking, oh my gosh, and then satisfying, and then the last word that popped into my head after watching part 6 was impressed, not only with it but the whole series. And so it just, hearing my initial reactions, I just wanted to focus on the word moving. I was absolutely moved by Leia's care and her kind-heartedness with people who were scared on the ship there at the beginning of that episode. I was moved by Obi-Wan's care for the rebels. He says to them, you're the future. He looks at Leia, says, you're the future. I was so moved by Leia giving Obi-Wan Lola for support. Oh my gosh, and didn't know that she did that, until he landed on that planet to battle Vader. I was so moved by Obi-Wan's apology to Anakin, to Darth, with tears in his eyes. I was moved by Reva's story, her flashbacks, and her showing mercy, like Ben says on Luke, and not becoming what Vader is. I was, oh my gosh, I was in tears watching Obi-Wan speak to Leia, on Alderaan, when he's talking about her and her parents. I watched the episode again this past Tuesday. Same thing, in tears, and then they played the Leia theme underneath. Just, oh my gosh. I lost a lot of water weight. I was moved when Obi-Wan was talking to Ben. And then, of course, when he sees and speaks with Qui-Gon, I'm just in tears. I'm like, there he is. We wanted it. They were setting it up. And, you and I were talking. We didn't know how they were going to wrap this, series or season up, but they did. And So well done. And when I initially turned it on, Aaron, it said, I think 51 minutes. And I thought, wait, isn't this going to be an hour and a half, 2 hours to wrap this up? But man, were they efficient. And so well done. And those are just some of my, initial thoughts, initial reactions.
Initial thoughts, initial reactions, same thing.
Right. But we're we're rebels reactions. We're Star Wars reactions. Carabast. Yeah, that's why you and I call it initial reactions, and and then of course our final reactions, final thoughts. All right, we use both.
We take one episode and open up with news about you being on Coffee with Kenobi, and we are carabasting all over the place.
I know. We're gonna bring it together here.
Oh Lord! All right, my initial reactions. Absolutely amazing. When you sit back and you look at the fact that we're all these main characters, Kenobi, Leia, Vader, even Owen and Beru, where their story ends, and how their story is going to play out. So no matter what happens, they are going to survive. Knowing that going into this series, and especially into this episode, it still had me on the edge of my seat throughout the whole thing. It had me tearing up and at scenes at the end and there at the beginning. I mean, it was just a very emotional episode. There's nothing else to really say except for it was perfection. It was everything that I love about the character of Kenobi and so much more. There it is. So let's go ahead and jump into some of our talking points that we got in here. Let's talk about the excuse me, residual cough left over from COVID there. I apologize. Let's go ahead and jump in here to right there at the beginning of the episode. We have them being chased by the Star Destroyer. They're in the basically the cargo ship trying to escape. To me, it was a very reminiscent, almost shadow scene of not only A New Hope, but of The Last Jedi, when Snoke's crews, when the First Order ships are chasing after the Resistance ships. And it was a very cool scene, but we see Obi-Wan on that ship, and he makes a very impassioned plea because he is about to abandon everybody on that ship, and nobody is happy with it. The refugees on the ship aren't happy. They're yelling, "Well, we were supposed to all stick together. What's up with that now? You're just going to leave us?" Leia is mad. You said you would not leave me. You cannot leave me. She's adamant. And Obi-Wan's basically looks at them all and says, "Look, for 10 years you have helped the Jedi. Let me pay it forward." And get them off your back so he can repair the ship and y'all can escape. And to me, that was very Jedi of Obi-Wan to do. And I was in it. Was very important part at that time. And during this scene, we actually see some important things coming for about Leia too, which we'll get to in a moment. But what were your thoughts on Ben making that declaration and making that ultimate sacrifice?
Well, you and I have talked over many episodes about, redemption in characters. We've talked about, the mythology of Star Wars, the psychology of it. And you and I have looked at characters, even secondary characters. You and I have done this. And, one of the most appealing things to me about our heroes and part of their character is caring about others. And I'm going to just give a quick little encouragement for people to listen to my psychology corner. because I talk about empathy there again. I have covered it in previous psychology corners, but here's Ben being empathic to their situation, not just his. Let me save my own hide. Let me help you, all of you. You've worked for 10 years on building this rebellion. And let me do this for Leia. And when you see people caring about others and being empathic to their situation, it's just wonderful to see it. I already, love the character of Obi-Wan, and this, gives you even more. This whole series, like you said, just really is a deep dive into him, and to consider everything that he went through, to still be thinking about others. It's wonderful to see at the beginning of this episode.
Excellent. It is. You don't, when you know the path that's going to be followed by these characters, you really don't think and about a character having a redemption journey in the middle, a sub redemption journey in the middle of his full journey. And Kenobi, having Kenobi go through this somewhat of a redemption, which is just story. It was phenomenal. Not in hiding, not knowing who he was, failing miserably there in his first fight with Vader, then turning around and coming back bigger and better than ever, and making that statement, and then getting basically right back to where he was at the beginning, but stronger than where he was before, because he now knows Anakin is gone. Anakin isn't there anymore, even though he's just like he told Luke, Vader killed him in
Right.
Vader's own words. So
Right.
he has more hope at the end of this series than he had at the beginning. And that was a journey of redemption for him to get there. And I love how they did that through this series.
Yeah, definitely.
So there at the beginning too, when Ben is hatching his plan to make his run to try to save everybody, we get a glimpse of Leia on the ship, and she is basically helping people.
Yeah.
At that young age, she's helping people. She comes walking up to Ben after leaving somebody, and she has Lola in her hands, and she basically says, they're scared, and Lola helps them feel unscared, and I'm just trying to help them. If that's not the most Leia thing ever.
Oh gosh, totally.
It is showing not only the Leia that we see in the future, but it literally ties right into the way Obi-Wan described her at the end of the episode, and the gifts and the attributes that she got from her mother and the attributes she got from her father. And that was just to me, a perfect scene, showing us Leia, and honestly showing us Padme in that as well. Because that definitely was a Padme move, trying to be sympathetic and compassionate to those around her while being strong. So, what were your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, once again, just leads in perfectly to my psychology corner later. I wanted to talk about empathy again. Here's Leia showing it at a young age, and it's wonderful to see that. And parents can play a big role in encouraging empathy in others. And again, just really quickly, there's two parts to empathy: a cognitive component, seeing things how other people see things, and an emotional component, feeling how other people feel. And when you can do that, you care for others, or there's a higher propensity to do that. And so I just loved seeing that at the beginning. It's just very much this brave little 10-year-old, and helping others, and then of course her telling Ben, I loved Obi-Wan's face. He goes, I might need some of that helped too, or I think he says Lola too, or something like that. And, a Jedi master, looking at a 10-year-old saying, hey, you could help me too. And that was a thing to see.
Oh, it was fabulous to see. And it is something that I cannot wait to see more of, if we get to see more of. I would love to see more of this little girl as Leia, in either another limited series about her coming into her role as a senator there at the beginning of the rebellion and stuff. I think that would be awesome, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'd like to see more of her. She's a great little actress, and I really, in listening to some other podcasts, buddy, just kind of getting a feel for what other people thought. You could tell that other people were really impressed, and her being a child actor didn't pull them out of the moment and watching, so while they're viewing the episode, it didn't pull them out. And so that was really good to hear. And I agree with that. I didn't feel like her acting pulled me out of it at all.
Oh, no, absolutely not. It didn't. I mean, matter of fact, it sucked me in more because she was such an incredible Leia, and she did so well in the role. I mean, at the end of this episode, when we're back on Alderaan and she's in her room and she's getting dressed and she's doing her hair, she's buttoning the buttons, the shoulder buttons on her outfit, she's putting her boots on, and she's in a very Padme style outfit, but then she's got the braided buns on the top of her head, like we would expect from Leia. Then she goes and, after looking as elegant and regal as a princess should, she then puts on those ratty gloves that Obi-Wan bought her, and she puts on that holster, and she is just Leia as can be at that moment. And then when she gets Lola back from Obi-Wan, she's using the holster to carry Lola. I mean, come on. It's perfect in every way, and she just played the part so perfectly. And I gotta say, to quote Palpatine, we'll watch your career with most interest.
Oh, no doubt.
So, all right. Well, the biggest part of this episode is what happened between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. So we need to definitely talk about that. But before we do, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back, and we're going to talk Vader and Kenobi. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here, Star Wars Reactions, talking Kenobi Part 6. The season finale. We are going to talk about the massive battle between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader, aka Anakin Skywalker. So they get to the planet, whatever planet this is. They land, and of course, they come head to head. Vader comes walking up to him, and there's only two people there, and Vader's like, "Are you here to kill me?" And Kenobi's like, "I'll do what I must." And at that moment, I kind of expected Vader to follow in what he did in Revenge of the Sith and be like, "You can try," but no, he goes straight to "You will die," and which shows the progression of just pure hatred and evilness that Anakin has traveled to as Vader at that point. And then we just see this fight just explode.
Yeah.
And it is just, it's indescribable how good this fight was. I mean, we see first off, they start off fighting, and you see Obi start to struggle just a little bit. But he's holding his own. He's doing better than he did last time. And Vader even recognizes it and is like, you found your strength, but you're still weak. And then really puts a beat down on him and buries him underneath some rocks. And then all of a sudden, Kenobi comes exploding out of the rocks and coming after Vader. And then, of course, he gets the floating high ground by raising all the rocks above his head and throwing them at Vader.
Mm.
And, of course, then Vader begins to struggle because Kenobi has really found his grounding in the Force at that point. And it just is stinking amazing. And all of a sudden, we see the blow to Vader's head with from Kenobi's lightsaber, and the helmet breaks. And it's a it's almost the exact same break that we see in Rebels in Twilight of the Apprentice.
Right.
Except for it's on the opposite side. And we have this conversation then between Obi-Wan and Vader. And Obi-Wan is just looking at him, and he's like in shock. He's like, "Anakin, I'm so sorry." And Vader's like, "Don't be sorry. This is who I am. This is you didn't fail. You didn't kill Anakin. I did." At which point, Kenobi, you could see the tears welling up in Kenobi's eyes. And he goes, "Well, then my friend is truly, truly dead."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then he does something that I never thought, or that just kind of really was like the knife in the back and giving it a twist. He just looks at him and goes, "Goodbye, Doth."
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't call him Anakin anymore.
Yeah.
Calls him, because up to this point he'd always called him Anakin. Yeah. But at that moment, he truly realized Anakin Skywalker was gone.
Oh, I know.
And he called him Darth, and he turned and walked away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I tell you, that moment, as soon as Vader looked up with that cracked helmet, and you saw Anakin in there, and during the talking, it was a mixture of James Earl Jones' voice coming through over, and a mixture of Hayden Christensen's normal voice, and you could hear them. They would just flux in and out of each other, and it was mixed so well. Kudos to the sound guys on there. Fabulous work. But it was just so well mixed and just ebbed and flowed, which just made the pain so much more at that point, because knowing what these two men shared, the brotherhood they shared, we saw it all through the Clone Wars, the brotherhood, and then the massive fight at the end of Revenge of the Sith, everything that these two men have been through together, it was gut-wrenching at that point, to have it in that way, or not necessarily in that way, but to have that happen. So I need to hear from you, David. What were your thoughts on Kenobi versus Vader Part 3?
Oh man. Well, of course, I'll lead with, when we knew that they would have, at least one showdown. We know that Ewan McGregor talked about that quite a while ago. You're like, wait, how does this affect Episode 4? In terms of, Vader's statement, the last time we met, I was but the learner, now I'm the master. And after that first tussle they had in Part 3 of this Kenobi series, you're like, wait, what? How does this jive? And so, you and I had talked about how there had to be another confrontation, and it was really neat to see Obi-Wan's connection to the Force really grow, over this series, but also during this particular fight, this battle. And, it does end with Obi-Wan is still the master. But something I thought about, and you mentioned it with Revenge of the Sith, that battle is incredible. It's just, they're 10 years younger. And in this case, you can tell they don't have a battle like that. But it makes sense to me that they don't, because they're 10 years older, both of them. But when it comes to Anakin being Vader and being in a suit, and a helmet, it's just going to be different
Mhm.
than when they're both not in suits and they're both 10 years younger. So I thought, you know, their battle in episode 3 is at the intensity it should be. This one here in this series, and then what they look like in episode 4. So they just did so well. And like you said, kudos on the voices, James Earl Jones and Hayden's voices, and intermixing those. Um, it is interesting to see Obi-Wan leave him to die again. And I don't know if it's that I don't know. You got to help me here, buddy. Is it kind of like a Jedi stance is to use the Force for defense, right?
Mhm.
Uh, not to kill. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, just like you said, and I thought you said it so well in your initial reactions, is you and I know where this goes with Leia, Anakin, and Darth. But I'm still nervous for Obi-Wan. I'm nervous for Leia. I'm nervous for Luke on Tatooine, and I know that Vader lives on to episodes 4, 5, and 6. But it's still interesting to see him leave him again. I think he just again can't bring himself to kill Anakin, even though I mean it's his brother. It
Mhm.
really is not just his Padawan and him the master, but him walking away and hearing Vader yell Obi-Wan. It was just, so powerful. And like you said, overall, gut-wrenching again for Obi-Wan. Gosh, this guy's gone through, he went through too much during Order 66. Now, 10 years later, going through this. Oh my gosh, this guy's tough as nails.
Well, oh, absolutely. He has to be. But you bring up a good point with why didn't he end Vader when he had a chance?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, and he had the Vader was beaten. He wasn't 100% beaten yet. He could still stand. He still had his saber, but he was hurt. And of course, that could have played out two ways. It would have been the perfect time to end Vader and end his reign, but then you still have Palpatine in power and he just replaces Vader.
Right.
And whereas it's complicated. So, it leaves you wondering what the thought process is on leaving him alive.
Right.
Whether it's just fear that he would go at that point, Palpatine would just get somebody else, or whether it was truly Obi-Wan just couldn't bring himself to kill Vader, knowing that he was still Anakin, even though
Right.
he
Yeah.
now knows Anakin's. I don't know. It's part of me wonders, and this is just pure conjecture at this point, if he realized at this point after that conversation where Vader tells him, "You didn't kill Anakin, I did." I think it was more of him realize. He says his friend is truly dead. But I think it's beyond that. I think it is the realization that Anakin is beyond his ability to redeem.
Mm-hmm.
And the hope that he still has the hope of Luke.
Mm-hmm.
And if Anakin can be redeemed, it would be by his son. But even though but then that was kind of one of the ways I was thinking. But then to counter that, I was like, well, in Empire Strikes Back, they were all talking about, well, no, you got to kill Vader and you got to kill Palpatine. Where's the redemption in that at that point? If that's where he was thinking, unless he just the desert calloused him again. But there's a lot of you can go a lot of ways on that.
You can. I have to admit, I really like your thoughts on, Obi-Wan knows from right the end of episode 1 when Yoda's talking to him about how always two there are,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sith, a master and apprentice. And so I really like what you said. If Obi-Wan's looking at him going, well, he's not the strongest Sith there is, the Palpatine is, but if I kill Vader, he's just going to replace him with someone perhaps even stronger that doesn't have the mechanical arms and legs and so on. So I like what you said. He'd just replace him with another Sith. That's it. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, which he would, he's got a whole Inquisitus, Inquisitorius that he could choose from. I mean, would that be a promotion for the recently returned Grand Inquisitor?
Right.
Exactly. Maybe the brother. I mean, who knows? But Vader's replaceable for Palpatine. He's expendable.
Oh yes.
He doesn't want to, but at the end, when it comes right down to it, Vader to Palpatine would be expendable.
He is. You could.
We see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go back to Return of the Jedi. We see that. Kill your father, take his place at my side. Vader's expendable. He's waiting on the next best thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So yeah, it's there. I don't know. There's a lot of things that could be done in there. Part of me wants to believe that it has to do. That it's a comment that of course it's that, but also part of me wants to believe that it's simply just because he still, even though he believes Anakin is dead, he still has hope Luke can reach him.
I like that too.
And not even just Luke. He has just witnessed the strength and the caring nature of Leia Organa, his other daughter, his daughter. So he could, there has to be that thought in the back of his mind. I can't reach him, so he's dead. He's dead to me. But that doesn't mean Luke or even Leia couldn't reach him.
Very well said. That's better than I could put it. Yeah.
No, I don't know. It's just how I played that out in my head. So, but it was a fantastic fight. It really was. And I got to say, when after Obi got himself out of the rocks and then he just kind of elevated all of the rocks over his head and started throwing them at Vader, it was just, it was perfect. It was literally the mobile high ground.
It really was.
He had raining down on Kenobi at that point. It was the mobile high ground. I've got the high ground and I'm throwing it at you. So literally. But fantastic fight. Oh my gosh. But we can't, this there was more to this episode than just that struggle. We see Reva at this point, because Reva shows up on Tatooine, still impaled through the stomach. How she's still alive, impaled through the stomach, and traveled to Tatooine in a matter of minutes. I don't know. But hey,
yeah, that's one of my nitpicks. That's
a nitpick. It's
on that.
It's a hole in the story, but it's okay. We'll move past it. But she's on Tatooine. She finds Owen and Beru's place, and she's looking for Luke. And we have that whole struggle going on there. And I tell you, for moisture farmers, they really took it to an Inquisitor.
I was really glad to see Bonnie Peace as Beru get some action. And when she opens up that thing and pulls out some blasters, I just was like, yes. And even Owen's like, wow, okay, all right, I guess we're doing this. So it was really good. I wanted to see more of them, and this episode delivered that as well. Not just Obi-Wan and Vader, but two key characters in Luke's life. Really need to see them battle her, Reva, and try to protect Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. It was amazing to see them fighting. And from what we saw in A New Hope, it leaves you thinking that maybe Owen doesn't have high regards for Luke. And we kind of see some of that reaction in this episode too, like when they go to the parts store to get the new belt for the speeder that Luke broke. Owen kind of gives that that he's not, is a little harder on Luke than he probably should be, but he's not almost like I don't want to say a burden, but kind of there. He's not my kid, but I'm taking care of him. Yeah. But during that fight on the bridge, on that little bridge, when he has that big stick and him and Reva are going at it, and Reva says something about him not being Owen's, and Owen's like, "Oh, he's my blood," and just starts wailing on her. He took ownership of Luke. He's like, "No, he's my family. He's mine," and he is literally going at him, at her, and pays for it, and gets knocked off the bridge, falls to the ground. But to hear Owen take, not necessarily take ownership, but that's essentially, I don't know what word to say at that point, but that's essentially, you know what I'm trying to say? Well, I'm confusing myself here.
Well, no, I do. I think, it's, well, we've talked about adoption before, and people can talk about biological kid, or, are those my biological parents? But, I've said it, I never mince words. Hopefully we're all adopted by God. I talk about the ultimate adoption. I want to be adopted. When Owen takes that stance, it's great to see. And you see it with Beru too, when she does the right hook to Reva's face. I thought she was fortunate she didn't get killed. By Reva at that point.
Both fortunate they're not. They're both fortunate they're not dead.
Yeah, both fortunate. Yeah, and but I do think, Aaron, the reason why she didn't is because, at the end when Ben gets there and he's talking to her, she literally asks, "Have I become him?" And by not killing Luke, by not killing Owen and Beru, she ends up not being Vader. And or becoming like him. And so that was really, really good to see. Yeah.
It really was. And that was a very, again, another emotional part to the episode, because she brings Luke back from the desert after she chased him out there, and he's unconscious. He at some point he moans and groans and starts moving again, but he's basically lying there lifeless. They don't know if he's dead or alive.
Yeah.
And she is pretty much in tears during that whole conversation. Have I become him? And he's like, "No, you haven't. You stopped yourself. You said you made the declaration you could not do that. You are not." So we see a redemption story for Reva in this series, from her tragic story of a youngling during Order 66, becoming an Inquisitor, and her journey through that to be redeemed there on this on Owen and Beru's moisture farm on Tatooine, where she buries her lightsaber in the sand. What is it with people burying lightsabers in the sand at the moisture farm on Tatooine?
I guess it's symbolism, right? I guess trying to, bury an aspect of themselves and to become somebody new,
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good. But it's we now know of 3 lightsabers buried on the Lars homestead. So, Luke, Leia's, and now
Reva's. Yeah.
Reva's. So that just kind of struck me as funny. She buries her lightsaber. I'm like, okay, well that's 3 now.
Well, it's 1 at that time, right? Because we fast forward to,
yes, exactly.
So there's 1 there, and then she puts the other 2 there. Yeah.
Which makes me wonder if at any point growing up Luke ever found it in the sand.
Yeah.
Kids dig in the sand.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally remember going out in my grandfather's backyard just for the heck of it and dug a 6-foot hole just because I had nothing else to do.
Oh, the days.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, those days. Yeah.
It was really interesting digging a 6-foot hole when I was only 4'5" at the time. So that made it interesting. I kind of got myself stuck, but that's a story for another time. But, but
Moving along.
moving on, but fantastic. Let's go into the ending of this episode to wrap it up, because after all this is said and done, we have the ending. We go to Mustafar first, where we have Vader sitting on the throne in his castle, and he gets a message, and appears the hologram of Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah.
Surprise number 1.
Yeah.
And fantastic interaction between the two. Vader is just absolutely furious and livid that that Obi-Wan got away. He is telling Vader, the Emperor, that he will not escape again. We got probes out everywhere looking for him. It will just be a matter of time before we find him, and he will not escape again. And Palpatine basically calls him out, and he's like, are you sure you're doing the right thing here? Is your focus where it needs to be? Basically calling him in check. Basically, check yourself. And at which point Vader straightens up and he goes, "I only serve you, my master," which basically ends his search for Kenobi at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Ian McDermott hinted at this at, I think it was ICCCCon, right? If I get that correct.
Okay.
In Nashville, he hinted at there would be the influence of Palpatine felt in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So people were kind of wondering if he would show up, and it was neat to see him. And yes, you hear Palpatine speak in a way to him that he's saying, is your focus on my plan, kind of like you said, and not your plan, my plan. And he's done that before. Even, I think, right in the conversation we see in Empire Strikes Back, where he's trying to make sure that Darth Vader isn't going off the deep end with Luke Skywalker. When he comes and says, "I felt a great disturbance in the Force," he's done it several times where he's checking with Vader, is your mind in the right place? Are you focused here? If not, maybe we'll get some, electricity flowing out the end of my hands, and that'll be the end of you. So I think when Vader says that he believes that a little bit, but overall, he still wants another shot at Kenobi, but he's going to try to. I'll say what I need to say to Palpatine to get him off my back.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and he does. So
yeah, he does. Yeah,
he does. So the next scene takes us to Alderaan, and it's a scene I alluded to earlier with Leia as she gets ready and all in this royal garb, and then she puts on the gloves and the holster, and she goes out to the landing pad where Bail is waiting for her, and she goes, he looks down at her, and she's like, there's basically that she's ready to learn how to lead, but if she's going to do this, she wants things to be different, and she wants to do it differently, and wants things to change. And I love how Owen just gets down on her level, and he goes, "Well, let's change it together." Mm-hmm. And which is, it was perfect. It was a very dad thing to say. Yeah. and which was fit perfectly. Then she turns and looks at the ship that just landed. She goes, "So who do we got this time? Cousins, uncles, aunts? Who do we got?" He goes, "Oh, nobody like that." And all of a sudden Obi-Wan comes out and come flying out floating behind Obi-Wan is Lola. And her little face lights up. She goes running up and she's like, Lola, runs past Obi-Wan to get to her droid.
Right.
Which of course cracked Obi-Wan up. And he's like, who am I to keep a girl away from her droid? And of course she goes up to interacts with Bale and his wife and basically goes, you know where to find me if you ever need me. Opening the door for the end of Rogue One and of course the beginning of A New Hope.
Right.
And he goes back to Leia, and this interaction between Obi-Wan and Leia, I'm sorry, this got to me. Because he looks at her and he's like, he's like, when you asked you if I knew your parents, and she's like, and he looks at her and is like, you're strong, you're this, you're that, and this is from your mother, you're this, and this, and attributes from your father, and you're just sitting there just bawling your eyes out because all you could see is Anakin and Padme, and I'll admit, I teared up during that. that hurt. That one hurt. And it was just such a touching scene that it was just incredible to see. And she gives him a hug and he leaves and goes away.
Yeah.
Thoughts on the Alderaan scene before we go to the final one?
It's incredible. Like I mentioned in my initial reactions, I was in tears. I've never minced words. I'm someone who I cry. I tear up at this. It's so moving. And I think it's for multiple reasons. Like you said, I think about Anakin and Padme. I think about her having lost her parents like that. You don't want anybody to go through that. They played John Williams, Leia theme, and they hadn't played it in previous parts or episodes of this series, and so I'm so glad they waited and put it there. I've always have found that theme so moving, and that's where I lost water weight watching that. And I just have so much respect for the character of Obi-Wan and being kind to children and obviously to adults and to he's a caring, loving person, and I love it. One of my most favorite scenes ever, and Ewan McGregor is just, oh my gosh, the guy's incredible, and so absolutely love that scene, my friend.
Very cool, as did I. Then of course the series ends with of course Ben being back on Tatooine, and of course he has packed up his cave. He goes to the moisture farm again, where he's approached by Owen, who says, I thought we agreed you weren't coming back. You wouldn't come around here. He goes, I'm not, I'm leaving. And as he goes to say goodbye, he looks at Owen and goes, you were right. He just needs to be a kid. His time will come, but right now he just needs to be a kid. And as he goes to leave, Owen's like, well, do you want to meet him? And Ben's face lights up. And next thing you know, you see Luke working on something, and he just kind of stops and stands up as this man approaches him carrying a Skyhopper toy in his hand. And he stands over him, looks down, and then we hear the line we've waited for since part 1 of the series. Hello there.
That was great.
Could not have been more perfect. Of course, we don't hear Luke say anything in that conversation. We just get the hello there. And next thing you know, he's riding away into the sunset. Yeah. And as he's riding away in the sunset, there's this ghostly figure standing there. And Obi-Wan stops and looks up and goes, Master Qui-Gon? At which point the ghost turns around and it is Qui-Gon Jinn. Surprise number 2. And he's like, well, it's about time, or it took you long enough. And I love what Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon said, in that he's like, because Kenobi's like, I thought you weren't here. And he's like, oh no, I've always been here. You just haven't been ready to see yet. So this whole series was Obi-Wan journeying to that place of peace, essentially, to where he could open himself up more to the Force. And we see that pay off at the end with Qui-Gon. And then Qui-Gon's like, come on, we got a long way to go.
Yeah.
And turns and starts walking off into the desert. And Obi-Wan follows. And that's how the series ends.
Yeah. Outstanding. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Love seeing Liam Neeson back. Was hoping for that. I think, like you and I said, we would take hearing him or seeing him, but we got both. So no complaints here. Awesome.
No, not at all. I loved that they brought Liam Neeson back to play Qui-Gon, and because it's been so long since this aired between us, with me having COVID and everything and not being able to record, I've gotten to see. There was actually got to see an interview with Liam Neeson where somebody asked him about coming back and playing Qui-Gon, and he's like, "Oh no," he's like, "I wouldn't let anybody else play Qui-Gon. It had to be me. It's mine. I would not let anybody else do that." Which is refreshing to hear that. Yeah, he loved the character so much, he wasn't willing to let the character go, which was awesome. So
that's cool.
It was a fantastic way to end the series, a fantastic way to wrap it up. So perfect. So what we're going to do real quick, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to do our final thoughts. David's got a psychology corner for us. And of course, our episodic Star Wars dad joke of the week. Hang with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here. We are talking Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Part 6, the season finale. So we just finished all of our talking points, so we are going to go into our final thoughts, our final reactions of the episode. And let me just go ahead and kick this off. It was absolutely fantastic. I got to sit here and I got to say thank you to Lucasfilm. Thank you, Kathleen Kennedy. Thank you, Jon Favreau. Thank you, Dave Filoni. Thank you, Deborah freaking Chow. This episode, this series was absolutely amazing. Period. Absolutely amazing. It was everything that I wanted in a show about Kenobi, but it was also everything I didn't know I wanted in a show about Kenobi. I thought I loved this character before this series. I love him even more now. Just like the Clone Wars grew my love of Kenobi, and understanding of the character for episode 3, this has just expanded on that. And I'm so happy we have it, but I am so depressed it's over. The fantastic series. David, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I mean, not everything you said, ditto that, and I'm so impressed by this series. I was nervous going into it because you and I talked about how the stakes were so much higher than the other live action Star Wars series on Disney Plus, more than the Book of Boba Fett, more than Mandalorian, because these are the big time characters: Kenobi, Vader, Luke, Leia. It's just huge. So they delivered, and Deborah Chow, like you said, the whole crew, the actors, just kudos, bravo, great job.
Excellent, perfect. So of course, we got to proceed. We grade each and every episode, just like if you got a grade in school. And those grades are A, B, C, D. And if anybody gives this an F, I will meet you behind the gym and we will talk about it. But we got our own grades. So, David, how did you grade this episode of Kenobi?
Yeah, well, I've never given a grade like this, but it's A plus 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 plus. So that's an A with 5 pluses. And I what do you do? How do you give how do you give like an A minus to this part or this episode in the series? I just can't, like you said, imagine it. So there's my highest grade ever, even more than Twilight of the Apprentice, that everyone knows who's listened to us for any period of time knows how much I love it. So there you go.
Perfect. There you go. For me, I got to one up you, David. This was an ultra mega A plus 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 plus. I had to get that one extra plus in on you.
Yeah.
Just to one up you. But fantastic episode, fantastic series. It does not get much better than what we witnessed in this episode. So
yeah.
Perfect. And of course, we want to hear from you. Let us know what you thought of part 6 of Obi-Wan Kenobi and about the whole series. You can, of course, do that by hitting us up on any of our social media accounts. We are on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest at SW Reactions, and of course Twitter at SW Reactions Pod, or you can email us anytime, anywhere, show@StarWarsReactions.com.
Yeah.
David, hit us up with that psychology corner, brother.
Absolutely. I wanted to first follow up on my last psychology corner where I covered the self-will, the Vader 2017 run by Charles Soule, and how I combine that with AA's Step 3. I went back and listened to it, and I just wanted to apologize for repeating myself too many times and stammering so much. I'll work to improve on that, and so I just wanted listeners to know that. So let me jump into tonight's Psychology Corner, and I want to be crisp and clean and not repeat myself. So in this one, I wanted to go over the counter to selfishness and trying to bend others and the Force to one's own end. Very much what I covered in the previous Psychology Corner, what Vader, the Emperor, and all of them do with the Force and Kyber crystals. So specifically, I want to talk about empathy. And as some listeners recall, I have discussed empathy in previous Psychology Corners, but it bears repeating tonight. Again, brief definitional difference between empathy and sympathy, just to remind our listeners. Sympathy is primarily an emotional response, and we sometimes describe it as emotional contagion. Again, we see the guy on the side of the road, no arms, no legs. It looks like maybe he's been burned all over. We just have this massive emotional response, not necessarily a cognitive response, but we just feel bad for the person. Empathy is both an emotional and a cognitive response. With it, you can have a good understanding of how another person feels and how they see or think about various situations, people, and such. And I wanted to point out that we really see this in Leia. Obviously, Ben, as Aaron and I discussed through this entire episode, we see it in Roken, Bail, and Rhea, Organa. We see it in Owen Lars and even Reva at the end of this episode. So this is the opposite of what we see from Vader in this series, as well as in Rogue One and the original trilogy. And I had typed up my Psychology Corner a couple weeks ago. Aaron and I always get prepared, and then Aaron and his family gotten COVID. Obviously, so many of us have, and so I wrote down that the world needs more empathy from everyone. It is sorely lacking now, and it is very evident. Now, this statement is I want to emphasize it even 100-fold after what we saw play out this past 4th of July weekend. And so just, horrible people doing horrible things, over the weekend. And again, that's why I just felt this Psychology Corner needed to be done. Even more so, even after seeing the series, but especially after this previous weekend. So I'm glad that we're recording now, and hopefully, people watching this series will be, positively influenced to be more empathic, like, Obi-Wan and Leia, and to encourage others to be empathic as well. So there we go, buddy. Another psychology corner in the books.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. And of course, David, if somebody wants to ask you questions about your psychology corner or about Star Wars in general, how could they go about doing that?
Absolutely. A few different ways. Twitter, I am at David_Modders, Modders. I guess the handle is Jedi Psych if you look that up. There's the email that Aaron talks about. I am David at StarWarsReactions.com. And then I've been doing some stuff on Instagram, nothing extensive, but it's just look up my name, David Modders, and you'll see what I have there, some pictures, mostly Star Wars. So check all those out.
Very good. Very good. And of course, if you want to talk Star Wars with me, the best way to do that is Twitter at TAHarris121079. Or of course, you can always email me, Aaron at StarWarsReactions.com. So, of course, David, you know what this means.
Oh, no.
It is time for this week's Star Wars Dad Joke of the Week.
All right, people. Get ready.
You ready for this, Obi-Wan?
I am ready.
My other dog is standing here staring at me. This one's actually named Obi-Wan Kenobi, ironically. Obi-Wan is sitting here staring at me. I don't think he's ready for it because he just turned and walked out of the room. So this week's Star Wars Dad Joke of the Week. Why does Princess Leia keep her hair tied up in buns?
Oh, I don't know, Aaron. Why does Princess Leia keep her hair tied up in buns?
So her hair doesn't hang solo? Hang solo?
Oh my gosh. That is
that's bad. Hang solo.
Oh my gosh.
Did you hear hair hang low? That's a way to a throw. All right, there we go. David, my friend. This has been so much fun.
It's been great, buddy. I'm glad we were able to do this. And again, I think the timing really worked out to record it now.
Absolutely. I'm glad we did. It's always fun to record with you. I'm glad I'm on the mend and doing better so we could do this. Everybody, thank you so much for listening in. Y'all are the best. We appreciate each and every one of you. We're praying for y'all, love y'all, wish y'all the best. Be kind, be nice. Let's make this world a better place. I know we can. Y'all are the greatest. Remember, this is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can email us at show@starwarsreactions.com for our show notes and the latest news from the Star Wars universe. Visit our website at www.starwarsreactions.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWReactionsPod or on Facebook at Star Wars Reactions. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on iTunes. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.